lot of discussion on what does this Senate look like, right? Are they going to essentially back Donald Trump's picks, even if those picks are people like Matt Gaetz, somebody who is considered to be controversial for all the reasons that we described at the top of the show? Senator John Thune is going to be the new majority leader, which matters because people know Mitch McConnell's name. You might not know John Thune's name now, but get ready to hear about him a lot because he's going to be having this sort of pivotal role. How do you see the dynamics playing out? Understanding the history here in the Trump era of a Senate that chose not to convict him on the impeachments that he faced, et cetera.
And also that the entire part of the Senate, is the cooling chamber. It is, we want to deliberate. We want to actually see if this legislation can be bipartisan.
You're saying that's traditionally and typically what the Senate
It is, although less in cycles, but obviously part of its tradition. But this is really fascinating, Hallie, because we talked about Thune, new majority leader, kind of comes from the traditional wing of the Republican Party. Certainly is not MAGA, but as we ended up seeing in Trump's first term, he more often got what he wanted from his Republican colleagues. Sometimes they stood up to him. You end up having the Mitt Romneys, the John McCains of the world who said no. But also, it's worth noting, there's not going to be a Mitt Romney in the next Senate. There is no more John McCain. There are two characters.
But there is like a John Curtis and a Todd Young, and Susan Collins and Lisa Murkowski.
Susan Collins, Lisa Murkowski are really going to be very interesting here. And of course, Republicans, if they do hold on to that Pennsylvania race, will end up having a 53-47 majority. So just Murkowski and Collins enough are able to stop legislation. But the dynamics are going to be really, really interesting. And again, I think the House is more full speed, MAGA and Donald Trump. And the Senate, I think institutionally, we're already hearing the comments about the Matt Gaetz for Attorney General. Is like, I don't know about that. What? I'm kind of surprised. I'm kind of shocked. That is your United States Senate. It's not saying that Donald Trump won't be able to bend his will and be able to get what he wants. It's just going to be a little bit harder in the Senate than will be in the House.
Can we talk about the other side of the aisle? And we'll do more on this in the days to come. But Democrats are having a real moment here. And you're seeing it, right? There's this discussion of who ends up being the DNC chair. I think state by state, people are looking at who leads those Democratic parties. One of the members of leadership talked about this a little bit ago, Congressman Pete Aguilar. Here's what he said about this moment that Democrats are facing now, as Republicans have, according to NBC News' predictions, swept the House, the Senate, and the White House. Watch.
It's very clear to us that for people with two jobs, the economy is gas and groceries and rent. We need to speak to those issues.
Okay, how?
Well, and of course, when you end up losing, Hallie, it is crushing, but also it allows you to kind of do new things and have a new message. And so Democrats are in the soul-searching time right now, and that can actually be a very healthy process. What Aguilar was talking about was the economy. And when we look back, it's now been a week since we've come out of the fog of that election, and the economy was...
Speak for yourself, Mark Murray.
The economy was central to Donald Trump's victory and to the Democratic losses. No ifs, ands, or buts. The number two factor...
Specifically the cost of living, to be clear. I mean, that was a huge factor for people. They did not feel good about how much they were spending at the grocery store and on their mortgages.
That was the mood music for the entire election. The other part that was really important to note is that President Biden's low popularity and the fact that people did not think the country was heading in the right direction. And then, Hallie, the third kind of really big component was that people had a very rosy view of Donald Trump's time in office from 2017 to 2020. People ended up viewing...
But Kamala Harris's favorability rating was higher than his, right?
It was, but still, when you ask people that said, did you approve of Donald Trump's job as president? In our own poll before the election, it was at 48%. It was never that high during his entire presidency. And more importantly, Donald Trump at 48% was much higher than Joe Biden at 41%. And so I think those three factors were what kind of was the reason why Trump won, why Democrats ended up losing. But then there are going to be a whole host of other things, like how do we message better? What kind of does our presidential nominee need to come from a state that's not California or Massachusetts? There's going to be 3 years to kind of get into those things. But those 3 points about the inflation, about Biden, and about the rosy view of Donald Trump's presidency, to me, were the most important factors in the Democrats' loss.
Real quick before you go, get super nerdy for a second. We talked about that recount for that Senate seat in Pennsylvania. Does Bob Casey have any hope here over Dave McCormick, or question mark, or do we think this is just writing on the wall?
There's always something. You're telling me there's a chance of some hope,
Okay.
Potentially.
Did not have Dumb and Dumber on my bingo card and a quote from that movie.
But, Hallie, it is worth noting there's still some votes to be counted on the provisional side of things. However, so to the point on you end up having a recount, McCormick has a 30,000 vote lead. I have been around where you have been able to overturn when you have a 100 vote lead or a 500 vote lead. But when we're getting to the tens of thousands, it is very hard. But I also think our decision desk has not called it. I think it's important to count all the vote, let the process play out. But I think that McCormick is the very big favorite in this recount.
Mark Murray dropping the knowledge and the quotes. Thank you, sir. Appreciate you.